Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. I'm Thorn. This is a new channel, but I'm kind of just thinking I should just put my thoughts out there, see how it goes. I've never done this before. This is my first time, so we'll see what happens. I just want to have some fun with it. I was gonna talk about the current state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's in kind of a weird place. You know, Kevin Feige trying to put out fires everywhere, actors trying to exert influence over scripts to a heavy degree, a little bit of infighting. And now we see Victoria Alonso's gone now. I didn't see that coming. I didn't even know that she had issues with the X-Men or was gay. That kind of blew my mind. So a lot of things are going on. We just had Ant-Man Quantumania. A lot of people didn't like it. People aren't really keen on Kang right now, as Marvel's hyped him up to be the next Thanos level threat. Everything's just weird. People have been complaining a lot about Phase 4, and I personally don't get it, and that's why I'm making this video. Typically, I just keep my mouth shut. I'm a silent observer on like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I prefer to just watch people. This time, with all that's happened, I think now I'm just gonna put my thoughts out there and see what everyone else thinks. Because a lot of what people are saying about the MCU now, I've always seen, and I'm not seeing why it's an issue now, except for some things. But what I want to do is just kind of talk about how these movies have been received in the past, because not much has changed. And I'm thinking a lot of people are looking at the MCU with rose-colored glasses and not really remembering how these films were reacted to when they initially came out. So start with Phase 1 and just make our way current. Iron Man came out the same year as The Dark Knight. Both movies would go on to define superhero movie history in great ways. Dark Knight would become a classic. Iron Man would become the foundation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So these films were kind of in competition. Dark Knight grossed over $1 billion. Iron Man, $585 million at the box office. But people really liked it. It was fresh, it was new, and Robert Downey Jr. was awesome. We had great talent. RDJ, Terrence Howard, Gwyneth Paltrow, I almost said Obadiah Stane, Jeff Bridges. Great actors. It's amazing Marvel was able to cast them. But the film still had problems. The script, for example, wasn't even really done when they started filming, which is crazy to me. To the point where even major changes in the script were done like last minute. Like the Mandarin was supposed to be the main villain of the first movie, and then they changed it to Obadiah Stane being the main villain. Which, I mean, the movie came out great, so can't complain. But then we see the same thing happen with Quantumania, and just a lot of changes made at the last minute. And I guess you could say it's just a really bad habit, because you would think a script would be finished in concrete before they begin filming the darn thing. But anyway, people enjoyed the first Iron Man. Incredible Hulk, not so much. I remember a lot of people calling it boring and not really exciting or fun to watch until like either the fight with the army at the college campus or the final fight with Abomination. The movie only made $264 million at the box office, so you can see not really interested in seeing the Hulk, or the really how the Hulk was portrayed. Iron Man 2, again, not a whole lot of favorable reviews. It did better than the first one, making $623 million at the box office, but complaints about like too much lead up to the Avengers, Whiplash not really being interesting. Tony Stark acting weird and kind of a jerk, making him unlikable to the audience. Issues. Thor. Thor, I actually really enjoyed. I actually really enjoyed when I first saw it. But again, there was competition with Thor and Green Lantern. And you know what happened with Green Lantern. Didn't go all that well. Thor, though, did a little better, but it only made $449 million at the box office. People were complaining about, it's too goofy, the romance is like kind of forced, not too much time on Asgard, stuff like that. I remember people calling Captain America boring. Good, but boring. And it only made $370 million at the box office. The big hit was Avengers, which grossed over $1 billion, and got people who weren't even watching Marvel films to watch it, which is awesome. What we can see is that these films were always kind of mid, but in comparison to other films that were coming out around that time, Rises, Amazing Spider-Man, X-Men Origins Wolverine, making a consistently good film series, consistently good enough, really won people over, I think. Again, I look at this and I think, okay, people are calling Phase 4 a failure, but even the movies made so much more than a lot of the Phase 1 movies. Now, they may have a similar vibe if you're thinking about like Shang-Chi. It feels kind of Marvel Phase 1, but even then, what makes the origin stories for these characters in Phase 4 kind of different is that the endings are a lot bigger than the ones that we got in Phase 1. Like, people have always complained about, certain things with, Marvel films. Iron Man 3, people really didn't like, especially because of the twist. Thor the Dark World, people still don't like it to this day. I think when people are talking about the MCU being like the bright cornerstone of like superhero films, I think they're really talking about Phase 3, personally. Now Phase 2 still had Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, Ant-Man. With Captain America, Winter Soldier being considered the best of all those other movies, those other three were still pretty good to really good. Guardians was a surprise hit to the point where people thought Marvel can literally just put out anything, because superhero movies had been pretty tame up to this point. Never had a talking raccoon or tree. So people were getting really excited as to what, Kevin Feige and co were doing, which is great for all of us superhero fans. And when I say people look at Phase 3 as just the phase of Marvel that they're probably thinking about when they think about how great the MCU is, I say that because Phase 3 had the most movies that people really liked. Civil War, Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, Infinity War, Endgame. I would even say, As Far From Home made over $1 billion. Guardians 2, people really liked. People were okay with Doctor Strange. Not really a big fan of Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain Marvel, though, even though Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. So I say all this. It's like people have always had issues with the MCU. So when I say I'm not really understanding people's issues with Phase 4 as much, that's what I mean. because in geek culture, I'm like in tune to all this stuff. At least I try to be. Now, there are some things about Phase 4 that I can kind of understand people taking issue with. It was the start of the MCU, so to speak, which in its own way kind of baffles me. I don't get it as much, only because when I see more women at the forefront of the MCU, that doesn't bother me. I Now there was an emphasis on more women being introduced or given more prominence, which to me is great because these are characters that we can use. Uh, a lot of female villains in Phase 4, which again don't bother me all that much because women are just as capable as being proactive, vindictive, evil, interesting, fascinating villains who, and this is an important point, who don't utilize their sexuality in order to be effective. Like Black Widow, Doctor Strange, WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, Loki, Hawkeye, all have prominent female antagonists. Now, maybe that bothered people. I'm thinking maybe. Though, if I'm looking at it from someone else's perspective and even putting a critical lens on myself, I can point out a couple things that, at least for me, kind of raise an eyebrow. And I'm like, why would you do that? For Black Widow, Taskmaster. Making Taskmaster a woman, not a problem. Making her brainwashed without a personality, weird. Now, seeing as though Harvey Weinstein is the villain of that movie, you can kind of get where they're coming. You can kind of see what they're doing. Was that a problem? For me, no. Like, I don't get worked up about stuff like that. Though I did find it amusing. WandaVision is a different story. This is where we're getting into a more toxic view of a woman's actions. Portraying Wanda as far more sympathetic than she should, despite her actions being grossly irresponsible. And in Doctor Strange, straight villainous. Director Hayward going from a sensible person that has legitimate reasons for wanting to arrest Wanda to becoming cartoonish in the end. I don't understand that. And then Monica being far more lenient on Wanda than she should have. She held an entire city captive. I don't really care if Hayward's a jerk. Wanda's a problem. And then erasing Doctor Strange from the show. I don't know if any of you know this who are watching. Doctor Strange was supposed to be in WandaVision. He was responsible for the commercials that she was saying and that we were seeing throughout the show. Really trying to hit like, hey, something's going on. You need to really pay attention. Someone's trying to feed on your magic. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Again, portraying Carly as far more sympathetic than she should. She's a terrorist and went out of her way to kill people. Even if we can sympathize with her cause, which we can't, she's still a bad person. And so when people are complaining about like these sorts of things, I completely understand. As a matter of fact, I take big issue with John Walker having his title stripped away. Now you can kind of see John Walker as kind of like a jerk, if you will, in the beginning of the show. If you want to, I saw him as a very reasonable person, picked by his government to be the new Captain America. Any person would kind of be like, look, I'm just trying to do the best I can. And seeing him throw his weight around, what do you expect? That's going to happen. You may not like it, but it's going to happen. Him killing the Flag Smasher and getting reprimanded for it blew my mind. I was like, okay, they're going to explain it away in the most sensible way possible. He killed a terrorist who was a danger to everyone in the immediate surrounding area. But no, they took his shield away and stripped him of his title. Now, I didn't like that. Sharon being a bad guy now, also kind of weird. I was like, well, this is new, but maybe they'll do something. But then she's irredeemable, as in she's gonna steal and sell government secrets, which is just weird to me. But whatever. She-Hulk is the one that gets a lot of crap, and rightfully so. It's the only show I've seen from Marvel or TV period where I actually got angry during the first episode when she's going off on Bruce. I'm just like, excuse me, are you unfamiliar with your cousin's life up to this point? And you're making it all about you? But she's supposed to learn something. The portrayal of men in that show isn't the best. But at the same time, if you're looking at it from the point of view of a woman, the negative aspects of masculinity is going to be more pronounced to you. It's just gross to see on screen because it feels like they're really pointing the finger at you as a viewer if you're a guy, especially with Wanda and Carly being seen as sympathetic, and they've done some pretty atrocious things. So it comes off as like really weird and insulting. And then I couldn't believe this when I saw it. Apparently the writers were actually trying to troll the audience and use tweets that they found online and put it in the show of people not really liking the idea of She-Hulk or whatever, which I find really dumb. And then the ending was dumb, though I love Daredevil. People had problems with No Way Home or whatever, but by and all, great movie. So people saying Phase 4 is a failure, it's a bit of a stretch, at least to me. There are some hiccups to be sure and changes to be made, but I don't see it as kind of the big deal failure that people are talking about. Like the issue with no connectivity or no like pushing to where we're gonna go next. It blows my mind because so many people talked about in phases 1, 2, and 3, why does every movie have to lead up to the next Avengers? Why can't we have just more standalone movies? And then we got more standalone content. And then people started complaining that, oh, Phase 4 is directionless. Not really when you see Loki and the multiverse and Kang, like you know where all this is going if you're paying attention. Like the ending, like the whole show of Loki, which is my personal favorite of the shows of Phase 4, really show what we're gonna see going forward. Multiversal war, all the Kangs fighting, and then ultimately probably one back in charge of everything. Likely. We'll see. But people have always had issues with, Marvel movies, and Phase 4 is no different. What I'm going to do, because I kind of want to see just how far I can take this YouTube thing, is go over Phase 4 one more time from start to finish and looking at it more critically. And then I'll give my thoughts here on YouTube in that order. Should be fun. Well, it's been almost 20 minutes. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death. Like I said, we'll see how this goes. I'm excited. This is going to be cool. This is going to be real cool. So thanks for joining. Have a great day.